Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Psychom Chats with Ntigi. I'm Ntigi, and you know what we do. If it's a Wednesday, if it's 6:30, we are talking to a science communicator. We're talking to a scientist. We want to find out about their psychom journey. We want to know more about their science journey and why they do what they do, especially the science communication part. Because we know it's not easy. It has its own ups and downs, and it has challenges, and we need to know how we can, overcome those challenges. And for those scientists who are like very, very scared or very skeptical about, dipping their toe into the psychom space, this is a chance for them to kind of get to know how can I do it? How do I get started? And what benefits are there, and how I can also benefit from this. Because as much as it's about communicating the science to the people, it should be worth something for you too. It should mean something to you too. So yeah, that's what we're gonna do. And also it's a chance for those who are in high school trying to figure out what they want to study, that they can always just, look at the different scientists that we interview and we chat to, that they can be like, oh, I could have gone into that career and I didn't know I could. But before I continue, welcome to everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in this Wednesday. I hope that as you watch, you don't just watch, but you also engage with us using that comment section. Type your name in, tell us what you're into, or whatever questions you have, because as much as I have so many questions for our guest today, I'm sure you do too. And if you know the guest personally, it'd be nice for you to just say hi to them, just to let them know that you're watching, that you're there, that you're supporting them through the whole thing, and that they are not alone. So today our guest is Tasvi Daya. I am so excited to have a chat with her because she is a cell biologist or a cancer biology researcher, and she's specifically looking at pancreatic cancer. And she was also a second runner-up in the Famelab SA 2021. And I really want to get to talk to her because she has a very interesting approach to psychom. I think just this last week she posted a video about a day in her life, and it was very interesting to see what she goes through. And it was literally psychom at its best, because you kind of get to see her life, but you also get to see what she does in the lab. So I'm not going to waste much time. I'm going to bring her right in, and let's get this conversation started. Her to join the session, and then we are going to have this chat. I'm really looking forward to it. Good evening, Tasvi.
Hi,
Tisvi, my
Tiki.
bad.
How are you?
Tisvi.
Fine.
Like, oh, let me just fix myself real quick.
It's fine.
It's so great to finally get a chance to, talk to you and stuff, because I think I got to know about you through the FameLab competition, and I saw you in
Yeah.
the finals, and I found it so interesting how you presented everything, and I was like, this is one science communicator I should definitely have on the show and hear what she's all about. So here you are.
Yes. Thank you so much for reaching out and for inviting me here today. I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I want us to get right into it, For somebody who's never met Tisvi and just wants to know who she is, can you tell us a little bit more about her?
Yeah, sure. Just a little bit about me, what I've been up to. I'm Tasvi Daya, and I'm from Johannesburg. I currently am a second year PhD student studying cancer, but I'm also a blogger for the South African Young Academy of Science, and I'm also a freelance medical and scientific writer. I'm also part of a science engagement committee in my institution, and it's called Biopod. We are on Instagram. And yeah, and I'm also a second runner-up of the FameLab competition in South
Mhm.
Africa for last year. So that's just a little bit about me. And I am a scientific communicator, but I'm also still slowing into it. Yeah.
Right. You dipping your toe.
Yes.
You dipping your toe into the
Slowly.
psychic waters and taking it
Yes.
one day at a time. I think that's the best way to do it for sure. So tell us a little bit about your research and yeah, why it's important.
Okay, sure. So basically, or specifically, I'm concentrating on pancreatic cancer. And, just in a few words, what I do is I look at different combinations of new drugs to see how would they work on those pancreatic cancer cells and, to investigate what they're actually doing to those cells. And, why pancreatic cancer is because it's one of those cancers that it goes about without being detected. And once it is diagnosed, it's already late stage. And
Mm-hmm.
normally, you can't actually remove the tumor at that point. So the best option is, drugs or chemotherapy. But then, that comes with another set of problems because there's a lot of drug resistance. And, that's when the cancer cells don't actually respond to the drugs. And then also, with drugs, it becomes it becomes a lot to handle for the patients. So basically, that's where I come in. I'm trying to, curb that resistance and all of that toxic effects that the drugs are exerting. And yeah, I think it's really important to focus on pancreatic cancer because, some statistics, they actually predict that by 2025, pancreatic cancer will be the leading cause of cancer-related deaths. And 2025 is literally around the corner.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's really important to study and work on it. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, okay, that's interesting. So, besides your scientific interest in pancreatic cancer, is there like a personal connection to it, or you just were like pancreatic cancer, that's it? Like, what was the journey to you being like, I'm gonna do pancreatic cancer, I'm gonna focus on that?
So, pancreatic cancer is specific. I don't have, a personal link to that. But both of my grandparents, they passed on from cancer. So, and, I'm sure if you ask anyone, they all have a link, to someone that either has cancer or struggled with cancer or passed away. So it's definitely a personal matter for me more than research. And I just want to be able to, contribute to that at some point in my life. It would be amazing if my research were, to be successful. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. Well, firstly, my condolences about your grandparents, losing them to cancer. But one of the reasons why I asked that question is because I feel like it's also important to understand the why of why people are actually in certain fields. And also,
Mhm.
and I also feel like it's something that keeps you going.
Yeah.
When you've run the experiment 20 times and it's still not working.
Yes,
And it's
definitely.
still not working. You really need something that's just like, why am I doing this?
Yes.
You need to have a deeper, need to have a deeper reason. It's almost like, when you're at the gym and they like, and it's so painful, like your quads are hurting for days from all of those squats and whatever. You're just like, why am I
Yes.
doing this? So like, I just always want to know, the deeper
Yeah.
reason behind why you do what you do. That's fantastic. So let's go a little bit into now your psychom journey. And then obviously we'll cover a lot of stuff. But speaking about psychom, FameLab, how was
Yes.
that experience?
Wow. FameLab. Oh, it was such a surreal experience. I mean, it was so fun and like I learned so many new things. I think that's actually where I got introduced to, scientific communication. I didn't know what it was until then. So, I got to learn about that, about new ways of presenting. And I think what was really fantastic was meeting and interacting with the scientists across South Africa. That was
Mm,
that was really cool, and I mean, I know, you know of a few like Kaylin and Letago, and, she represented South Africa at the international and she done an awesome job. So those are the type of people that I got to meet. So it was amazing. But I also had no idea what FameLab was or what it entailed. And I just thought to myself when I started my PhD, like I want to do other things besides getting these degrees. I want to do other things, and that's
mm,
how I actually joined it. And actually, 2 weeks before the competition began, I almost backed out because I had so much on my plate, and I was like, no, I think I should just, stop. And somehow I just decided, let me just see how it goes. And, I went quite far. So it was, thank God I stayed.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was so awesome. And I really hope that more scientists, join the competition. I mean, the training, the coverage, the meeting of people, it's so eye-opening, and it's an experience you can't get if you don't actually enter these competitions. So yeah, I'm just so happy I did it. It was awesome.
Yeah, I'm glad you did it too. I mean, your presentation was so fascinating. I think it was really, really great. So let's talk a little bit about because you said obviously you didn't know about Famelab, you didn't literally know about
Mm,
SciComm going into it. But now that you
yeah,
do know about it, now that you're in it, what are some of the
yeah,
challenges you're experiencing right now? Because I mean, you said you're in the very beginning stages where you're like dipping your
yeah.
toe in, but what are some of the things that are like you finding challenging already in such an early stage?
I think, the biggest challenge for me is actually just getting started. I have all these amazing ideas in my head, and then when it comes to actually doing it, I'm like, okay, no, maybe I'll do it another day or another night. So I
Yeah.
think that's a big challenge for me, actually getting myself to put myself out there. It can be, quite nerve-wracking. But then I also realized that there's other forms of science communication besides being on social media. I mean, the blogging, the writing, art, painting. There's so many things you can do that relates to science without actually being in front of a camera.
Mm.
So I started with those things, and then I got more comfortable to moving on. And then, I think another challenge is also that a lot of people think to be science communicators, you need to be an expert in what you're communicating. And it's not, necessarily true. I mean, you do have to have knowledge of what you're saying, but I don't think you need to be an expert. And, if you've seen, I'm not sure if you've seen any of the other SciComm pages, they all, masters or PhD students that are learning. So, have fun with it, communicate it. You don't have to be an expert, to
Mm.
communicate it in a fun way. So yeah, I think, but apart from those challenges, it is fun. I mean, this is fun, communicating, talking.
Yeah.
And yeah, I hope more people jump on board. We need more people to spread the love of science. Seriously, we do. Yeah.
For sure, for sure. And obviously, I mean, in the beginning, you mentioned how, you have a personal vested interest in cancer, not specifically
Mm.
pancreatic, just cancer. But I just want to know your journey into science. Like, how did you end up in science? Was there a teacher who sparked your interest, or were you that kid who at 4 years old, you got this microscope as a toy and you just couldn't let it go? You're just like, this is it. I just want to look at microscopes. Like, how did you love? Because I don't like, there must be something that sparked the love for science in you. What was it?
So, actually, that you've mentioned about, being a kid and have a microscope. I actually have a niece who has a microscope, and she's like, I have to come there and play with us. It makes me so happy to know that there's one person in my family that could be a scientist. um, so I think, well, in high school, I loved biology. I loved it. I just thought it was so fascinating to learn about all of these things, especially about microbiology. And it's so funny because I'm not in microbiology today. Um, so I think that's where it started. And yes, I had amazing science teachers as well. Um, but when I went to campus, I think that's when I really, really enjoyed science. I mean, I remember coming home one day, it was in my first year. Again, it was a subject that I'm no longer doing. But, I went home and I told my parents about how excited I was that I picked, biology or biological sciences as my majors. So it was just so phenomenal to learn about all those things. And I mean, I'll never forget the first time looking down into a microscope and just seeing all these amazing things. So yeah, I think it started off there. And then, by the time I was in third year, I really realized I enjoyed biochemistry a lot. And I also understood it. It can be very complicated, but I understood it. And that's how I went through like honors and masters. And then when it came to my PhD, I decided, nope, I want something completely different. I want to just a new environment, new people, new techniques, and that's when I switched to cancer. And then again, I had that feeling, looking into a microscope and seeing cancer cells. It was like being, a kid all over again. So I knew definitely the right place. So that's where I am currently now. Yeah.
Ah, okay. Like I always find it interesting, for how people end up in where they are. And it's nice
Yeah.
that for you, it's always been science.
Yeah.
There's some people who are like, no, I never wanted to be a scientist, but here I am. And I'm
Well,
loving
it's
it.
time for being famous, and I'm just going to settle for the science for now.
Oh, so it was the science of being famous. Currently, you're doing
Yeah.
both. If we
Yeah.
look at the last video you posted on your Instagram, I think you are heading the right direction to being famous.
I hope so.
Let's talk a little bit about that video. You did a day in the life. Why
Yeah.
did you decide to do that? And why did you decide to go with that approach?
Okay, so the vlog is actually a link to the blogs that I do, and we had to showcase. It's myself, and there are other ladies as well that I involved, and we had to showcase. What is it like being a scientist? So I didn't want to just. I mean, obviously the lab is cool. Everyone wants to see labs and cells and drugs and all of those things, but it's difficult to show those things without actually explaining to them. You don't want them to see things and not know what's happening. So I wanted to show something really easy. So I started off, and I was coming back from holiday. So it was perfect. I was just starting off again. And I wanted to show that being a scientist isn't always just work and work and work and work. It's literally, using your day to research something in the most amazing, fun way, you know. So I went about showing the lab and what I would do and just the usual processes. And then I also showed about, me relaxing, having fun, and enjoying my weekend as well, because it was a weekend that I did it. So that was the basic plan. It was to show that, being a scientist, many people think you're just cooped up and, that's it. But there's much more to being a scientist. It's very fun. I find it fun. I don't know about my colleagues, but I find it fun.
Well, with everybody I've spoken to, they're doing it because they love it. I don't think any of them do it just because they have no other choice. I really think they enjoy it. And I think science is one of those things where you kind of have to enjoy it, because if you don't, you're going to be miserable.
Yeah, definitely.
You're going to be miserable. I remember at some point, in my third year, in undergrad, I think I did microbiology. I majored in microbiology and biochemistry, and we're doing microbiology practicals for like the third year. And we
Yeah.
had to work with arisers because we're extracting DNA from the soil and stuff like that. I'm sure that makes a lot of sense to you. It might not make sense to other
A
people, but
little.
an ariser is a whole other thing. And it it just was not working.
That happens a lot.
It just was not working. And I mean, the process itself takes so many hours. And then you
Yes.
find out after so many hours that it didn't work, and you just have to start again and wait for the next hours, and you can't carry on with anything else until it's done. Because
Yes.
you need that data to work with the next thing, to work with the next thing. And it's not like, oh, in the meantime, I'm just gonna do. You can't in the meantime. You just have to
Exactly.
wait for that stuff, which can be so frustrating. So with
Very
you work
frustrating.
a lot with
Yeah.
obviously cancer cells and stuff. What have you found to be the most frustrating part of being in the lab and working your job? Let's be honest here.
Can I say the whole PhD, everything? um, I think for me, it was even more difficult because I came from a biochemistry background and then I went into cancer. So I had to relearn everything that an honest student would be taught, in other words. And obviously, I had to learn it much quicker because I needed to get a move on. So I think at first, it was difficult handling the cells. I killed myself sometimes, and there was content issues because I wasn't used to working with them. I was used to being a bit more rough with my cells to actually get protein. Now I'm trying to, take care of them and be gentle. So that was definitely a bit of a transition. And to be honest, I'm so proud to say now, it's like, oh, it's so easy. I love doing it now. It's one of my favorite tasks to do.
Mhm.
Um, and I think the frustrating thing, especially in research in general, is whatever like data that you generate, you need to replicate that. So even if you do it once and it's perfectly goes fine, you got to do it again and another time to make sure that they all saying the same thing. And I think that's frustrating. So it's not actually the research, it's just that you've got to hope that the next time you do it, it's going to give you the same results. Yeah. But
Yeah.
now that I'm more comfortable, and I'm still learning, of course, um yeah, now it's not as frustrating as it used to be. There were times where I just wanted to quit. But I'm happy I pushed through. Yeah.
I'm glad you did too. I'm glad you did too. And obviously, you mentioned that you're not working with cancer cells before you did your PhD.
Yeah.
And now that you're doing your PhD, you work with them a lot. So I'm sure you learned a lot about them. So what are some of the most interesting things you learned about cancer cells? Or you just mind-blowing stuff. Where you're just like, I didn't know that.
Okay, well, first, it's definitely just looking at them under the microscope for me. That always still blows my mind. Sometimes I look at my flask and I think, am I going to see cells today or are they going to be dead? I don't know. So I always still get really excited. But I think the thing that I was most intrigued about was that because I'm doing pancreatic cancer, I'm actually working with two different pancreatic cancer cells. And it's so cool to see how different they are, even though they are both producing, a tumor. So I think that's really, interesting. And to see that even though they are both pancreatic cancer cells, they respond to the same exact drugs differently. So I think that for me, it opens up my mind to all of the other questions that I can ask and, all the other work that I can do to answer those questions. But yeah, it's still, for me, I still really love looking under the microscope and looking at myself.
Ah, that's amazing. That's amazing. And in terms of cancer research in Africa, in South Africa, how well do you think or do you see we are doing as compared to the rest of the world?
That's a tough one because we just don't have the utilities that other countries have. And that plays a significant role in the results that you can get. I mean, there are other countries that can provide those, you know, those machinery and equipment to do all of those things that we can't. So obviously, then we're limited in terms of what we can actually research. And then, apart from that, I think one of the most frustrating thing about doing research in Africa is that we have no funding for it. It's always an issue. Like, are we going to get money to actually do this project? How do you progress your country if you're not given money to do so? So I think we produce amazing research, and we have world-class scientists, but we are limited because of funding and the machinery that we have. Yeah.
So, yeah, I never know what to say after somebody says that because that's obviously something that comes up quite a lot. Funding,
Yes,
of like where do we get the money? Because the reality is that research is expensive.
it
Um,
is.
and, but do you think that in African context, that as much as obviously you're saying we need the money to do that, because of how things are and unemployment rates and all of these different things, that government is just like, we will just prioritize this instead of that. Do you think it's more that kind of situation?
Um, I don't think I can like really, make a conclusion on that. But in general, we're a third world country. So in general, we don't have the money that other countries have. Even if we had enough money, that could still perhaps, the research funds that we get would still be larger. But because we just don't have that, because we are still developing, in general, we don't have it,
Yeah.
irrespective of, what the government is actually giving. Yeah. So I think it's just that we just don't have the money in
Yeah.
general. Yeah.
We just have to keep trying
Yeah.
and going with it. And obviously, I mean, at this point, I think a lot of funding comes from abroad. Have you found that this might be a little bit of a controversial question, but have you found that obviously with research funding that comes from abroad, there's a lot of what can I say? It's very specific of what you can and cannot do and what results you can and cannot give. Have you found that to be something that comes across a lot, or is it not really an issue with you?
So it's not, I haven't actually experienced that because, any funding that I have on my project or with me, it's from South Africa. So it's not abroad. Um, but, having looked at some of the bursary applications for funding abroad, I think the main limiting factor is just the field of study. Not all of them prefer cancer biology. Maybe it's more based on climatology, or maybe it's more based on doing health sciences work or clinical work. So I think that could be the main limiting factor. But even, saying that, there are still many, many, many bursaries that do actually want molecular and cell biology students. So I can't say that I'm disadvantaged in that regard. Yeah. But as for the other part, I'm not 100% sure. I haven't experienced it.
Okay, okay. Two more questions before we run out of time. So I'm just gonna make it a little bit lighter now. I think the last few questions were very deep. So let's go a
Yeah.
little bit lighter and just
Okay.
be a little bit more casual. But with the work that you do, when you meet people and stuff like that, what do you say you do? How do you explain it to them? And what are some of the questions that they ask you?
Okay, so when I tell people, sometimes I don't like to actually tell people I'm doing a PhD, because the first few things that come out from their mouth is, "Oh my God, you're still studying." Now, I don't know. I mean, you know, look, some PhDs you do study, but in our field, and at least what I'm doing, I don't open a book and study. I just read papers and I do actual lab work. And in some people would consider that like work experience. So yeah, sometimes I don't even want to tell people that because of what they think that a PhD is. And then, when I do talk about cancer biology, I think I explain it, the same way I've said it to you. I just say that I work with drugs to try and find out how the cells will respond to the drugs. And then I usually just, stop there unless they ask more questions. But I seriously, I have enough of the "you still studying" comments. Yeah.
Mhm. Sure. Okay. So now that you mentioned the still studying comments, I tend to ask this to my female guests sometimes. What other pressures do you tend to experience from a traditional perspective of like, so when are you getting married? When are you doing this? Do you get asked those questions quite a lot as well? Or is your family and your people in your community more like, nah, it's okay, just whenever she's ready? Or if she doesn't,
Yeah. So my family and the community around me is very, very supportive and laid back. I mean, my family is like the number one supporters in my life. They are pro PhD, pro get that degree. Be that doctor. So yeah, in that regard, there's absolutely no pressure. I feel pressure for my career though. I just feel like I just want to get this degree so I can leave Wits and I can have a job, a real job. So I think that's the only pressure that I really feel in terms of, traditional, having a career at my age. But I guess it comes with the pros and cons, because although I might not have my first job, I'm going to be, Dr. Daya for the rest of my life. And I'll always have that degree behind me. And, there's a lot of places that I want my PhD to take me. So, yeah, I think about it as, an investment, if I can say. Hopefully the investment pays off.
It is an investment, and it's the
Yeah.
best investment. Investing in yourself definitely is the best investment. Final
Yeah.
question, then we are done because we are out of time. I need you to complete the following sentence.
Okay.
I am a science communicator because
I am a science communicator because I want to show others that anybody can do it. I want to inspire others, not just for, science communication, but for science. Like, it's such an amazing field. There is so much that you can do with science. There's so many roads you can travel. I just want people to understand that. And, all you really need is, especially in science specifically, all you really need is direction, passion, and execution. If you have those three, that science career can really just, go all the way to the top. So I think that's why I'm a science communicator. And I want to bring awareness to science communication also. Like, you researching something so amazing that's hopefully going to save millions of lives. Why not have fun with it? Like, why not communicate it? So yeah, I am doing science communication for those reasons.
love it. There's
Thank
nothing
you.
more for me to say. Nothing more for me to say. All I can say is thank you so, so much for agreeing to do this chat. I learned so much and I really enjoyed this conversation. I think it was a lot of fun. Obviously, we only have 30 minutes, but
Yeah.
I feel like we
No,
could really
thank you
go
so
on
much.
and keep talking.
Yeah.
So
No,
yeah,
thank you
all
so
the
much.
best.
Sorry?
No, just saying all the best.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me. And yeah, it was fun talking science.
Yeah, and I really just want to echo this comments that just came through now. Is it from Pranet? Yeah, they're saying, well done, Tisvi. Onwards and upwards. Investment in knowledge is foundational. I totally agree with that. And I don't think there's
Thank you.
anything more for me to say, but to say thank you to everybody who was watching. I see you
Thank
have
you,
a
guys.
lot of supporters. So many people came through for you today and to watch you. So I really appreciate them for you.
Thank
um,
you. Thank you, everyone.
yeah, so all the best with the rest of the research, and we look forward to maybe bringing you back on one day as a Dr. Daya.
Yeah.
So that would be fantastic.
Oh, definitely. Hopefully soon.
Hopefully soon. Hopefully soon. All right, have a fantastic evening.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Bye.